Welcome back to another video. Guys, I just saw what has been titled a plutonium red pill on thedonald.win. And I'm going to share it here in case you missed it. And I'm going to read the whole thing as it's pretty long. It is a screenshot of a post on Reddit. There is a subreddit called Off My Chest. And if you know anything about Reddit, you know that Off My Chest is a converged subreddit. Like most of the subreddits, guys, are converged, the main ones. So like if you go to R Christianity, for example, you will get a bunch of atheist and non-Christian garbage. If you go to R Off My Chest, you have posts that are completely censored or they just basically remove anything controversial, like most things on Reddit. So you've got a true Christianity subreddit, which is much more Christian, and you also have a true Off My Chest. And true Off My Chest has been keeping it very real lately in regards to everything that's been going on in American culture in regards to police brutality and black culture. This post, when I read this, is not going to come to a surprise, or I should say is not going to come as a surprise to anyone who lives in the United States, who grew up in the 80s, 90s, or even more recently, and went to school with black kids. It will not come as a surprise at all, especially if you went to a black-dominant school, even if you yourself are black. And I know that some of my viewers are. But this video is definitely dedicated to Asif, my guy in India who sees the media reporting one thing, but knows that there's an underlying truth that the media is not reporting. So this is for you, buddy. But let's read. First of all, let me just pull up the screenshot. I'm on mobile, so forgive the noise. Car passed by. I'll try to get to a more quieter area. If you want, you can go to Reddit and look at this guy's username. That's one way to actually browse posts. This was posted to True Off My Chest and received maybe, 5, 12, 24 gildings. So if you're familiar with the Reddit system, you can gild or award a user for their post. It costs real money to do that. So there's at least, 12, 14, 20, 25 users have paid real money to give this post an award. The user is u/education throwaway 12. So education throwaway 12, all one word. I think his account's been suspended already. If you go and search, of course it has. And here is the post, guys. I begin reading it. One second. Here it is. I used to teach in a black inner city school. Their issues are their own fault, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. I've been a high school science teacher for a little under 10 years. I've primarily worked at poor urban schools with high Hispanic immigrant populations, and I've loved most of my career. Yeah, some low points and difficult times, but that's everyone, right? The year I taught at a black inner city school almost made me leave the profession entirely. I was entering my 5th year teaching, and I decided to take on a new challenge. Local inner city schools had been advertising turnaround initiatives, and I decided to give it a go, as the school I was at had a very successful turnaround initiative completed when I had first arrived. 2 schools were similar with one major difference. The proportion of students who were listed as economically disadvantaged was the same at both schools, but I was leaving a primarily Hispanic school for a primarily black school. The entire year was a complete disaster from beginning to end. I could probably write an entire book about the shit I saw there, but I'm going to give you the highlights, starting from least to most serious. Class was basically optional. Wow, let me just back that up. Class was basically optional. Kids would walk in or out constantly, if they showed up at all. Any attempts to enforce any kind of rules about tardiness and truancy was usually met with "fuck you, nigga." And even if they did show up, they were rowdy and off task constantly. Very little education took place in that room, or any of the rooms for that matter. For example, one girl pulled out her phone, turned on some music, jumped on her desk, and started dancing on top of her desk. I tried to get her down, but she kept telling me "fuck you" over and over. This was at least weekly for her. This same little bitch also gave a speech to the school board about the institutional forces that keep black people down. Before you accuse me of having shitty classroom management, I tried talking to my AP, which I think that means assistant principal. I tried talking to my AP and my principal about what to do because I had never experienced anything like this. And they told me something I was going to hear repeatedly throughout the year. It's just their culture. You have to respect that. It's important to note that I was literally the only white male in the building. Almost every other adult was black, with a few Hispanic men and another white woman. The black female principal with a PhD in education told me it's just their culture and I have to respect that. Wow. I wish it ended there, but it doesn't. The crab bucket mentality is real. I had a handful of good kids, and coincidentally, I'm sure, they were all almost African immigrants, so people from Africa. One boy from Rwanda was accepted to Stanford. Holy shit, I was so proud of him and so happy for him. You know who wasn't? The college counselor who was trying to pressure him to change his mind and go to fucking Grambling instead. Said he was turning his back on his community by going to Stanford. I've got a lot to say about that, guys, but we'll wait. Trying to manage them was bad enough, but each class had about 40 kids in it. You might think this is a problem with funding, but we get more money per kid than every other high school in the area, and this is a major city. It didn't go to hiring teachers. It went to just maintaining all the shit the kids just destroyed for fun. We issued each student a laptop, and it was a pretty small school, about 850 kids. Throughout the year, we had to issue about 1,000 replacements. The kids kept pawning them or just destroying them for fun. Several times I caught groups of them just throwing the laptops against the wall or down the stairs, cackling and howling while taking turns filming it for the Vine. This was before TikTok took off. Every single TI-83 calculator in the building was stolen from every math and science teacher. But you can't just make them put it back before they leave. You think we didn't try? They'd howl and scream about any number of things and just storm out with it anyway. And again, couldn't do anything about it because the school cop told me, along with the principal, it's just their culture. I don't want to hear shit about, well, they can't worry about school and they're poor and may not make rent and are hungry either. Every 2 weeks, we handed out bags of groceries to every kid in addition to the school cafeteria serving free breakfast and lunch to the kids and free dinner later in the evenings to students and their families. I don't know why. It was a fucking waste. They'd fish out the snacks and dump everything else. Hundreds of pounds of food wasted a month. We often tried to salvage what we could when they just throw the bags on the floor. And I know for a fact that almost all of the housing in the area was heavily subsidized Section 8. And we haven't even touched the real big issue yet, which is violence. Fights were a daily thing. There was pretty much at all times a fight going on somewhere in the halls or in the classroom. Usually the punishment for a fight was about an hour in ISS. I guess that's some kind of detention. A kid needed an average of five fights before anything more substantial happened, like a 1-day suspension. Notice how I said in the classroom too? At least once a week a teacher got hit. I had quite a few swings at me. I had quite a few take swings at me. Again, usually just sit in ISS for an hour, right back the next day. The first time a kid took a swing at me, principal demanded to know what I did to provoke him. Apparently telling him to remain in his seat was enough to set him off, and it was my fault. Again, why? It's their culture. And now on to the big one, where I decided I was done. A group of 6 of the biggest assholes followed me out to the parking lot and they showed me their knives. Said if they didn't get credit for my class toward graduation, they'd kill me. I was terrified. I ran to the school resource officer and the principal. The principal told me I had to give them extra credit. You guessed it, it's just their culture, these things happen. And we wouldn't want to wreck their lives with a police report over something like this, would we? For the first time ever in my life, I told a supervisor to fuck off. I would do no such thing and I would finish my contract to the letter, but I would do absolutely nothing extra of any kind. I was done with that shithole. I never walked the same path twice and kept my back to a wall at all times until in the parking lot where I was constantly looking over my shoulder, prepared to run at any time. That was 3 years ago. I went to another school in the district, just as poor but Hispanic instead of black. The principal is also Hispanic and an alum of the school, and because of this school, I am glad I didn't quit education. I love it here. It's just like the school I started off at. There's issues with poverty, but they're good people trying to make the best of what they have, and I go into work each day, and not so much anymore with remote learning due to COVID, but you get what I mean, with a smile on my face. Yeah, I have shitty kids, but we all do every year. I was deeply saddened by COVID because I didn't get to say a proper goodbye. I actually cried over that, except 2017, when it was almost every kid, every period. That sentence is burned into my brain. It's just their culture. If so, you'll have to forgive me when I'm not exactly sympathetic to the cause, because you did it to yourself. So I guess I finished that a lot quicker than I thought. Got it done in under about 10 minutes. Lot to unpack here, guys. God, where do I even begin? Let me take a look. I'm going to unpack this line by line, or like paragraph by paragraph, which I typically do when I read a Reddit post. First thing that I want to talk about is how this guy loved being a teacher. You know, teacher is like a thankless job. It pays 40, 50,000 tops a year in America. This guy's in a major city, which means his 40 or 50,000 a year isn't going very far. If you were to live in a rural area, 40,000 to 50,000 a year is really good. You can pay off your house. You can live a pretty decent middle class life. But when you're in a major city in America, 40 or $50,000 a year is practically poverty, especially if you're in a liberal city where the prices are ridiculous because of taxes and other stupid things. He loved his job anyway. It's a thankless job. And right off the bat, he does bring race into it. And what he basically says is that every year teachers have shitty kids no matter what their race is. But when he worked with poor Hispanic kids, they didn't do the things that poor black kids did. Compared to his Hispanic students, the black kids were straight savages. And this really saddens me because it's been my experience too when I was growing up. And hear me out, because I did not go to a black school in an inner city, but we all knew what they were like because we knew people who did. We had a few black kids that came to our school that lived in our town. They were our friends, very few. And because that they were the minority in our school, they did pretty well. And all of them are doing pretty well in life today, despite coming from low income housing in the town that we grew up in. But they had dads, and they hung out with us, and most of them stayed away from the gangbanger life. It is so bad, guys. We're basically, I'm not, but these people I live around me are bending the knee to a group of people who strive to be gangbangers and rapper millionaires. None of them ever going to make it violent, and then tell us it's our fault, and these people are believing it and feeling bad about themselves. It's never going to happen to me. In fact, the more you try to make me feel bad about being white, the more proud I am of being white. I really am. You're making me prouder and prouder to be a white Christian. Straight male. Keep it up. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's see here. I got to load it back up on my phone. And yep. The entire year was a complete disaster. Switching from a poor Hispanic school to a poor black school was like night and day. You know, despite the Hispanics being very socialist, left-leaning, they are Christians who come from a mother and a father household with lots of kids. That makes a pretty big difference. Class was basically optional. Kids would walk in and out constantly if they showed up at all. Any attempts to enforce any kind of rules about tardiness was met with a fuck you nigga. Dude, none of the kids that I ever went to school with from grades kindergarten to 12th grade till we were 18, no one would ever dare say F you to a teacher. That was just like one of the worst things you could do, obviously besides threaten to kill them, which happens in this story. We had a fear in us. You didn't do that. First of all, our teachers were good and we mostly liked them. But also, I mean, most of us would have to deal with dad and mom when we got home if they found out we did that. So the kids that he's talking about in this story have no consequences for their actions. The school lets them get away with all of this, and then they get nothing happening to them at home when they get home. It is such a bad recipe for disaster. But I will say, I want to go to this part about crab bucket mentality. It's super true. Black people who do well always get told that they're selling out to whitey. Literally being told those words, you're selling out, when they start doing good and get accepted into schools like Stanford, one of the best universities in the country. And the actual counselor is telling him not to. Oh, so sad. Maybe I'll post a video. But yeah, Africans today are much smarter and much higher class than African Americans as a whole. And it saddens me, guys, because I do have Black American friends, but they're not like this. I don't have any that came from the gangbanger lifestyle, single father households. Mine are generally ashamed of that life and have dads and are indistinguishable from other Americans. Skin color basically doesn't matter. But yeah, this is just so sad. Like, I don't want to talk about this, but this channel is about the truth. And yeah, black people really do bring each other down sometimes. When they're doing well, their friends get jealous and they don't know how to handle it. Crab bucket mentality. I did a whole video on this, but I've never talked about how it was prevalent in the black community. A lot of people do it to their friends, but it's a big deal in the black community. Yeah, and the whole TikTok thing that he mentions. I mean, guys, it's just savagery. I think you can just basically see the rest of this post. I don't need to go into it any further, really, line by line here. When you have no consequences for your actions, you have no guide, not even believing in God, you turn to this shit. You think life is a joke, so you throw your laptop down the stairs and film it for TikTok points or whatever. It's just savagery. I will post a video because you can find them. They happen all the time around America. They're called flash mobs of youths because the news never wants to say mob of angry young black teenagers, but it's always that. So 50 or 100 of them will straight up descend upon a corner store and just raid it. Like, it might be the year 2010 or 2015 in the video, but it's a raid. It's the same thing as a raiding party that would happen in the old day. Like, straight raid a store, take everything and run out. And because of the sheer numbers, the shop owners can't do a damn thing. Plus the law would work against them if they were to open fire, which in my opinion they have the right to do or should have the right to do. I'll post some flash mob of youths videos here so you can see this kind of savagery, but don't feel bad. This was done to the blacks by the Democrats. The party that was the party of the Confederates, the party that held the slaves, the party that created Jim Crow laws. Their final act of enslavement to the blacks was getting them hooked on welfare, incentivizing single motherhood, and incentivizing them to have more babies because their checks would increase. You can do your own research on the American welfare system. You get more money per kid, and you can't have a man in the household. These are the rules. So that has absolutely enslaved blacks to the Democrat vote, as well as ruined their families. And now you have generations of a lot of black kids who are fucked. They're just complete savages. Like, the only thing that might straighten them out is the military, maybe. And you wonder why they end up in prison. These same kids who are jumping up on the desk, screaming Black Lives Matter, breaking their laptops, threatening their teachers to kill them with a knife in the back parking lot, they go to prison. And that's where they belong because they're not functional members of our society. This is not our culture. Like, if you want to say that's their culture, well, that culture doesn't belong anywhere near our fucking culture. Get it the fuck away from my kids and my culture. My culture doesn't act like that. My culture is not a savage, degenerate culture. It is a proud culture that does well in school, that tries hard, that plays sports, that learns music, that learns history, and that becomes a productive member of society and one day becomes a father and stays with their kid. And the cycle repeats. I don't want this multicultural bullshit anywhere near my culture, and other races don't want them either. There is a reason why you don't see white people, Mexican people, Indian people, Asian people, Arabs. They don't move anywhere near these concentrated black neighborhoods. Why wouldn't they? The land is so cheap. You can get a house in a super black neighborhood for pennies on the dollar. Go look at in Detroit, dude. There are blocks in Detroit, Michigan, where the houses are literally 15 grand. A house, a 2 or 3 story house on a city block. You could probably buy the whole block if you have good credit. Like, nobody wants to fucking live there. They're ghettos, dude. They're ghettos. Why does nobody want to live there? Because people don't want their kids and themselves to be killed. Everyone knows the reality of the situation. Let the police, let them defund the police. It's going to affect them the most. Cops will just move to nice towns. All the people who can afford it will move to the nice town. And everyone who can afford it will have police protection like nothing ever happened. But the cops will move out of these cities, and these cities will become Somalia. Just like Minneapolis, the way a particular congresswoman wants it to be. I'm really not trying to make this an angry rant, but I saw this post on the Donald and I figured I'd talk about this. This is a real experience that so many teachers could verify. This post has 25 paid awards or Reddit guilds. It's no joke. This is the true experience for a teacher who tries to change the world in an inner city black school. Can't do it. He got the F out of there, and good for him. And he stuck it out. He didn't quit the career, and he's back with a Hispanic population who have their own problems too, but not like this. Those kids can be saved. I mean, all these kids can be saved somehow. I hope. I want to be hopeful. Jumping on the desk in the middle of class. Has anyone ever seen anything like this? I know one of you guys commented that you had a friend who was a gangbanger, or you have gangbanger friends. Like, yo, bro, I forget what your name is, but I want the best for you. I don't want you to go down that path. If you ever need advice, like, I think you've asked me for advice before, like, I'm really there to help. If there's anything I want to do in my life, it's help these kids who don't have dads, who don't know how they can act and how they can be to stay out of jail. I want to help. I don't want to see this become so bad and start to affect my kid. I don't want my kid to go to a school and not only be scared and afraid, but also feel bad because he's white and have a bunch of people tell him that he's bad because of something his ancestors may or may not have done. I hate this shit. I hate it all. This is probably going to get my YouTube channel banned, but whatever. I guess I'll just stop talking now. I think we're going at like 25 minutes. I don't want to make this too long, but I saw this post and I just knew I had to read it and do a video on it. You can check out this guy's Reddit page. I'm pretty sure his account's been suspended. Education Throwaway 12, I think is his name. This was posted on the Donald though, cross-posted. And they can't touch the Donald. It's not on Reddit anymore. Reddit is so converged. If I think of another point that I missed, I'll put it in the description below. Let me know your thoughts. I don't want to offend anyone who is black or pissed by this, but this is just the way I see it. This is what I've seen when I grew up in the 90s. This is what I've heard from people who are in certain professions these days. This is all the way it is. And I hope I'm wrong. And it's really sad. It's really sad. I don't take any pleasure in this. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you're still here, if you like this kind of content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, so we can game that YouTube algorithm, which I'm pretty sure is suppressing content like this in favor of mainstream lies. Thanks, guys.